for another episode of On the Couch today. I want to take a few minutes and just sort of remind everybody of what we do and why we do the On the Couch episodes. And again, I'm Stephanie Baker. I'm the founder and the executive director for Life in Abundance. We are a counseling ministry located here in the upstate. We offer counseling to families because we believe that by strengthening families, we strengthen our community. And On the Couch has come about as a way for us to discuss topics in about 3 or 4 different areas. And those areas are typically other counseling topics. During the On the Couch episodes, and if you follow us, you've seen them before, we will be talking to counselors, not just on our own team, but in the Greenville area. We are super excited to have a great referral network because we know we're not the answer for every single person. And it's important that we be able to have a good network with other counselors. So you'll hear from some of them from time to time. And what we're trying to do is take some of the mystique away from counseling. And a lot of times there's a negative connotation for people when we talk about going to counseling. A lot of people grew up here and we don't tell anybody our stuff. Oh, counseling doesn't work. Oh, what are you going to do? Bash your mom and dad? It's not about that. And so there are various topics that we will address and sort of take some of that confusion away from them. And if you are listening as one of our followers, it may be something that's helpful for you, or it may be something that's helpful for somebody in your family. So please do share our podcast when you feel like it's appropriate. The other thing that we do is we talk a lot about functional nutrition and functional medicine. And if you've been following us for a while, you will hear from various functional nutrition and functional medicine providers. I know we've done a lot of stuff on autoimmune conditions. We've talked a lot about Epstein-Barr, Hashimoto's, a number of those types of things. And at Life in Abundance, we believe that we are body, soul, and spirit beings. We're triune beings. Scripture tells us that in Thessalonians. And so when someone comes for counseling, specifically with me, I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor, in addition to being a clinical pastoral counselor on staff. I'm looking at somebody and listening to everything that they're saying, but I'm taking the whole person into account because I can have people come in and say they feel depressed and their vitamin D is tanked. Just that alone can help somebody feel better. So that's why we focus on those topics. And again, to break them down and have them not be so confusing. The other thing that we do is we talk to people in various ministries and businesses who have resources that you may or may not be aware of. And so by us highlighting those businesses and ministries, you may hear about something that you didn't know about before and need that particular service. So, which is the case for us today. And I am thrilled because we have Shonette Sullivan with us. Shonette has her MBA, and she's also a CPC, which means Certified Professional Coach. She is with the Financial Peacemaker. That is her business. And she is a financial wellness coach. She is a consultant. She's a trainer, a speaker, and an educator, and an otherwise brilliant woman. You're going to get a lot of great information from her today. And I love this. This is on her website. And as one of her missions is to help people in business gain control, find harmony, and achieve peace of mind in managing business finances. See, I didn't know those two things could coexist. So it's wonderful to have somebody who can come here and share with us. So Shonette, welcome. We are thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Well, so I've given the audience a little bit of an overview of the mission that you have, but my goodness, tell me about the Financial Peacemaker. How did that come into being? How did you get started doing that?
So it came to being because of my own journey and experience as an accountant, tax professional, and QuickBooks ProAdvisor. So many people who are in my network would know me as a QuickBooks expert, a tax expert. But my years of doing tax and accounting and bookkeeping, the training, and all of the years that I'd done the training, most of my clients, many of them would still end up in the same position.
Hmm.
So I would say that I would had a client who had $20,000 in revenue, and I also had a client who had $1 million in revenue. And then in the same month, they both had overdrawn bank accounts, which said to me, it's not about how much money you have. It's about
No.
who you are and how you show up.
Yes.
Some of those limiting beliefs that you carry, some of those limiting beliefs that you hold when you're managing your finances. So long story short, I came to this out of my own experience. And even when I say my experience with my clients, but even in my own experience, being a high achiever, overachiever, reaching for the stars and more money, just realizing it wasn't the money that I was seeking. And I would never have peace, true peace, until I had peace within. So that's what led me to be the financial peacemaker. Because again, and let me step back a couple seconds.
Sure.
When I was working with those clients, the $1 million client and the $20,000 client, what I would do is sit down with them in the meetings and say, these are what your numbers are. But before I would do that, I would address who they were as a person. Before we got started with the numbers, before we talked about anything, I would address who they were as a person, what was going on in their lives. And then we would go through the numbers. And at the end of the sessions, they would say, man, I just feel so much better. So that just came back to mind, how I ended
Wow.
up with that name. So my clients actually gave me the name, but it's my own experience that led me there as well.
I love that. So you're looking at the total package. You're not just looking at symptoms, you're looking at root causes in finances. I love that.
It's the whole person, just like life in abundance. So when I heard you speak
Yes.
about that, you have to minister. You have to speak to, well, I'm safe to say minister.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a ministry.
Yes,
You have to speak to the whole person. I can't talk to you about money until I understand who you are and what your mindset and your beliefs are about money.
that's right.
Who are you trusting in? Are you trusting in yourself or are you trusting in God? All right, what are you afraid of? Like, are you afraid of success? Because we can be afraid of success as well as being afraid of failure.
Absolutely.
So it's all those things. It's like who you are as a person in totality, which is why I say I'm a financial wellness coach. Because I first have to understand who you are in order to help
Right.
in your finances. So I'm a life coach and a financial coach, hence a financial wellness coach.
I love that. I really do. It lines up so much with actually, again, how we work with clients here.
Mhm.
So when somebody comes to you, what is there I'm not even quite sure how to ask this question, so it's gonna be a little clunky for a minute.
Mhm.
How what is the most common thing that somebody comes to you and says? I mean, do they just come in with shoe boxes of receipts and papers and go, "This is all a mess, I need help?" Like, what is that for you like?
So I don't do that anymore, that part, because I don't do the taxes anymore.
Right.
I
Okay.
used to be the shoebox person with the receipts. I used to be that person, so I don't do that anymore. So
Okay.
where I am now, it's more on the spiritual side, really, the
Gotcha.
emotional and spiritual side. So before, when they come to me, we first have to figure out who they are. What is your money story?
Ah, okay.
What is your belief about money? And then we understand what is your money personality?
Mhm.
Because I can't talk to each person the same way. Your personality is built based on your money story. So we first have to find those things out. Once we figure out what your money story is, and I do want to say that right now I do group coaching rather than the one-on-one coaching. So I do group
Love
coaching
it.
with those because it's better for one to be in a community, but I also work with organizations to teach and train employees as well, so that they can be show up better for themselves and for the work that they do. But what I would do is when someone comes to me, we first have to figure out what your money story is. Because like you said, like we said earlier, it's just a symptom. When you come to me, it's just a symptom to the
Mhm.
overall problem.
Mhm.
And so people are, I don't want to say they're tricked, but they come, I need to fix it. We need to fix this. First, we have to figure out what the root of the problem is.
Right, exactly.
And so the most common thing that people come to me is their fear around making mistakes, their fear around success, their fear around failure. And so once we get to the root of that, then we map out a plan. All right.
Mhm.
A lot of times is they don't really manage their time effectively because they have weak boundaries or they're not organized in what they do. And so we create a plan. Okay, how is it based on your life that we can create a plan that you get organized and manage your time so that you can clearly see what you're working with? If so many people are overwhelmed because nothing is in order, like this, everything is in disarray. So we first
Right.
figure out what your money personality is, what your money story is. Okay, how do we set boundaries so that you create the time to work on your finances? And once it's organized, you gain more peace and more harmony as you organize those things, as you and continue to move into what it is that the goals that you set for your business. So it's really at the core of it all, it's really about strengthening you so that we thereby strengthen the family. Because if you are stressed, if you are overwhelmed, your family, it's going to be a trickle down effect.
Absolutely.
So how can we stop? How can we control that? How can we reduce the stress and overwhelm that you feel so that it does not overflow into your family because it affects how you show up, not only for your clients, but most importantly for your family. So, in my background, my story was because of my own family, my own mother who had to work hard. And so her stress caused me to want to help others. And
Mhm.
so that cycle of if she's stressed, that causes me stress. So then when I produce children, I have children, I'm stressed, which causes my children stress. So
Right.
again, as I talk about the financial peacemaker, it's some of the things that I had to walk through myself. And so as I sit here and I help business owners, specifically those who have children, I can help, other clients as well, but those who have children because it impacts the next generation. So as I sit here,
Wow.
a long answer to a short question is not just about strengthening you as a business owner. It's about strengthening you for your family for the next generation.
So if I reach out to you as a client,
Mhm.
what happens? Like, walk me through the steps of working with you.
So working with me right now, you will work with me. I offer two master classes. The first class is goal-driven budgeting for busy and professional women. So we first map out what your financial goal is. What is your financial goal? Once we set those goals, we map out a budget based on what you set for your budget and your goals to be. So we map out a budget for that. The second one is planning with intention because like I said, when you're managing your money, you have to be intentional about your time. So there's no such thing as just flying by the seat of your pants and wanting to have your money line up
Mhm.
the same way. You have to be intentional
Yeah.
with your time. So that's the first step. So first, the way people work with me is through those two master classes. From there,
Okay.
then we decide the long-term coaching program, which is a group coaching program where we
Okay.
walk through personally organizing your finances and your time.
So when you do this group coaching program, when somebody walks through that with you after the two master classes, how
Mhm.
long does that last typically?
So right now it's 8 weeks. It's an 8-week program.
Okay.
Because we give you time to work on, like it's a training session, a coaching session. I say, yeah, I'm so used to saying training because I'm a trainer. It's a coaching session, and then it's an implementation session. So after we coached you on something, so many times people attend trainings and walk away and never apply it. So every other week, it's a training session and then an implementation session. We're going to come back and implement everything that we've learned or that we've discussed in the prior week so that we're intentional about getting you the results that you need
Sounds like it provides accountability as well.
as well. And you do it in a group environment.
I love that, and there really is, benefit to being in a group of other people. It sort of, um, normalizes that it's not just you, right?
Mhm,
Other people, and there's power in that, because I think, and again, coming from the ministry perspective to somebody who with their own ministry basically here, because it financial peacemaker, just the term peacemaker is
mhm,
ministry minded to me. But
mhm,
sometimes what we're looking at in that group is it, the enemy tries to get us to keep secrets, right?
mhm,
To like the transparency, especially if money is a trigger. Like you and I were talking a little bit before we started filming, and I was sharing with you that money has been a trigger for me throughout my life. And we won't get into why right at the moment, but it goes back to when I left my home um, early. Um, but but I think what I have learned and try to communicate very clearly to my clients is that which you keep in the dark, the enemy has free reign to use against you. And when we bring that out and we're talking to God about it and we're talking to others, I mean, scripture is very clear, confess your sins one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. So what I take from that verse in particular is um, it's not necessarily you and I are talking about a sin. I mean, maybe there is one in there, but transparency keeps me closed off. I know that when we work with addiction, there's two sides of the same coin, isolation and the addiction, right? And so when I am explaining to other people or confessing to other people, I am struggling with this. There's a freedom in that, that unless you've experienced it, you can't understand it. It is
Mhm.
freedom. It is like chains being broken, and a freedom to breathe. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that right there is what's so powerful about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, I know, when I went through coaching programs years ago, training to become a life coach myself, actually, one of the things that blew me away were the statistics that were presented at that time. Okay. And that was back in like 2012, 2013. So I know that it's different even now, but they were talking about the fact that the coaching industry is based on the fact that you already know the answer. You're not waiting for somebody else to come and tell you that. You're waiting for that person to ask you the right question that brings that out. That's first of all. If you have an idea on your own and you think, yeah, this that might be pretty good, you're there. There's probability, and it's not real high if it's just you going, yeah, I think I can do this. But your probability for success jumps to, if I'm not mistaken, the quote was about like 95% success rate if you schedule a time to talk one on one, or in a group, like about said goals. So
Mhm.
not doing anything about it, like that's where that accountability comes into to play. I laugh with some clients who are like, my house is cluttered, whatever. Invite somebody over, and I promise you, by the time it comes for them to come over, your house will be clean, because deadlines and accountability, right? They help push us towards the finish line there.
Mhm.
But anyway, anything you want to add to the statistics of probability for reaching goals?
No, you said it. You said it. You hit the nail on the head. It's about accountability because we can set goals all day long,
Right.
and it's hard to be accountable to ourselves as much as we
Yes.
don't want to admit it. It's hard to be accountable to ourselves. So it helps um, when we do have someone that we can be vulnerable with.
Yes.
It
Yes.
does help when we can release ourselves from that bondage, from that
Yes.
isolation, when we can release ourselves from the guilt and the
Yes.
shame and the
Yes.
embarrassment and all those emotions that come when we
Yes.
don't, when we are in fear of sharing from where we're from. And so
Yes.
for me, freedom, I first had to find freedom within myself. And so when I show up for my clients, I show up from a place of saying, I've been where you were. I've lived in poverty, and I've also had executive level positions. So I
Mhm.
understand the fear, and I understand all of those emotions that come along with it. And the group, and it's intentional about the group coaching that we have. It's not just for anybody. It's for the people who are ready, and for those
Yes.
people who are willing to stand in the gap for each other. And so as we stand in the gap, and it's non-traditional, it's not for everybody because
Right.
I pray.
Mhm.
We
I
will
love
pray
it.
because there is no peace without the ultimate peacemaker.
That's
So
exactly right.
just to add to the accountability, it's really about accountability first to yourself because the
Right.
goals that you set are the goals that you set, not that someone else sets for you.
That's right.
It really is to free you, to give you
Yeah.
liberation from the
And
bondage
it's
that so many of us have.
Yes. And it's different. Like, what I'm hearing in your discussion here is that this is not about somebody telling me everything I've done wrong.
Mm-mm.
This is about moving, like defining where I need to be and want to be in my business, and then figuring out the steps that are going to take me to that place. It's not about judgment. It's not about somebody making you feel horrible. And you know what? And I know that there are people out there listening to this right now going, no, because that person's going to judge me. And this is not that. I mean, that's not what this is about. And you know, I think that's just really important to remember, as you've said. And I love the fact that you're bringing God into it, because there's not a dollar bill that's given to you or me that actually really belongs to us.
Mm-mm.
It all comes from him. He's the creator. He owns creation and every single thing that's in it. And we want to be good stewards. We want to be
Mhm.
good stewards of what he's given us and what he's called to do. Now, how many or do you work with nonprofits?
I haven't worked with nonprofits for a while. The past couple of nonprofits I've worked with has been with me training or facilitating courses for either the employees or for a group
Gotcha.
that needs the instruction. For example, I
Gotcha.
work with organizations to bring in training
Hmm.
for the employees around financial management, or
Okay.
organizations that provide business training. So with nonprofits working in that regard, I would facilitate trainings.
Okay. Okay. So, who is the most common client that you have? Let's do a just a case scenario, not one specific person, so that nobody's going to be recognized, but just kind of a composite of who you work with.
She is very well put together on the outside,
Hmm.
but her image is too big for her to say that I'm afraid. Her image is too big to say I don't have it all together. And she's looking for a space. She's looking for a safe space.
Hmm.
So she has a family, she has a lot of responsibilities, and she's
Hmm.
looking for a haven or a way out, not for someone to condemn her,
Right.
because that's part of what keeps her away.
Okay.
But for her to come and say, "Hey, I need to take off my superwoman cape. I need to put it down for a minute, and I need to start from where I am." So, like we were saying, I just need to start from where I am and get the map out the steps that I can move forward, and
Hmm.
then her be vulnerable enough, her be willing enough to say, "This is where I am, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Hmm.
Let's start from here to move forward to where we need to be." So she is that entrepreneur. She has a family.
Love it.
She's concerned about her children. She's
Hmm.
concerned about the time that she wants to spend with her husband or whoever it is, whether she's married or whether she's not.
Hmm.
But it's more about the generation, the next generation, and the future that comes through her, and for her to understand who she is as she shows up. And so the better that she shows up, the better that she'll show up for her clients and for her family.
So we're really also talking about a legacy, leaving a legacy.
So that's it.
Right. Okay. All right. And when I hear that, some people might be like, oh my gosh, I can't just make it through tomorrow, much less think about a legacy. Right.
Mhm.
And so I'm guessing that you can sort of break that apart for somebody, and help it not be so overwhelming to them when they're thinking about that.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
Because once we identify, go all the way back to your money story,
Hmm.
go back to your money personality. We identify how you deal with money. We talked about money has so many triggers,
Hmm.
has so many different things. So if you're coming to the table already overwhelmed, we have to take it step by step.
Yeah.
We see the big picture. We see the big goals, like we got the goal driven budgeting. We see the big goals. Now let's break those down,
Yeah.
because goals have to be clear. They have to be realistic. All the five things that goals have to be:
Smart goals.
smart goals,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
specific, measurable, attainable. Yeah, and so all those
Right.
things. And so that's how we break it down. You come with a goal. Let's break those things down in
Yeah.
manageable steps.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, just out of curiosity, because this happens, with us in counseling from time to time, what happens if somebody is in the program and they're not moving forward because not because of you, but because of them? Like, what happens then?
That's when, because I'm a coach, I'm not a counselor,
Mhm.
I'm not a therapist.
Right.
That's when they would have to partner with a coach and with a therapist, someone, because there are only so many things that I could address. And we
Right.
do have to say there's so many things attached to money.
Oh yeah.
So much attached to money that we just can't scratch it. We just scratching the surface. So
Yeah.
in my level of expertise, I know that sometimes there are some things that need to be worked out in counseling.
Yeah.
And so that's when, because I have no power, but I do recognize that sometimes there are so many roadblocks that need to be, so many roadblocks and so many underlying things that need to be addressed. And in those instances, they would have to partner with a counselor or a therapist.
Yeah, and the way I explain to that's a little bit the difference between coaching and counseling. The way I explain that to clients, I can only in my role, I can only be one or the other. I can't and I can switch one time, but once I switch with somebody, I can't go back to what the role was.
Mhm.
So that's how that's, basically monitored. But we describe coaching as helping somebody move from point A to point Z, a defined goal that they're trying to hit that they've been unable to do on their own. But in that process, counseling is different. We're dealing with emotions. There are still goals that we may set, but we're dealing with emotions. We're dealing with past hurts and wounds, and that's typically not what you guys are going to get deep into in that environment. We may identify some of those things, but or you may identify some of those things, but you're not going to go down deep and try to work in that. So that's really the difference between coaching and counseling. Is there anything you want to add to that
No.
differentiation?
Yeah, and I do tread very lightly, so I agree with what you said. And in our profession, we know that there's a fine line between coaching and counseling. And so when we do coaching, it's like high level because there's some things you can uncover, some wounds you can uncover that we can't bring people back from. So I agree with what you said. High level identifying those things, and once you identify those things, seek the help of a counselor or a therapist to help guide and walk them through those things.
Agreed. So, what would you say to somebody right now who is thinking about maybe reaching out to you after watching this? What would you want to say to them to encourage them or to help them decide whether this is the right fit or not?
There's therefore no now therefore there is therefore now no condemnation. So we talk
Love
about
that.
salvation.
Right. I love that.
There is no
Okay.
condemnation. There
Okay.
is therefore now no condemnation.
And I love that you are so forthright in saying that because I mean the fear of condemnation keeps people from coming to counseling,
Mhm,
and this is a safe place
mhm,
for people, and it sounds like that's the environment that you're creating there. But
mhm,
it's about let's move forward, let's
mhm,
move forward, and I think the enemy does not want any forward movement, period.
mhm,
He scripture tells us he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And a lot of times we partner with him without even realizing that that's what we're doing.
mhm,
And so the idea that we can go and discuss things, especially the business piece, because you may be a single provider for your family.
mhm,
You may be a widow. I mean, I've got 5 different scenarios right now I can think of in my client load that fit what you've been discussing, right? The entrepreneur, the business owner, and it is a different mindset, and it's a different set of responsibilities. When you and stress is in every situation just about, but I mean, you can be stressed as an employee due to your working environment,
mhm,
due to pay, stuff that you don't have any control over. But the flip side is if you are the person who's running the business, that's a whole different set of responsibilities and stress there,
mhm.
and so it's different. And unless you've done it, you don't realize all of the different facets that go into play. So I would just encourage anybody who's listening, just if you are running your business and you are feeling overwhelmed, even if you need a tune up, just to go and make sure your head is in the right place when you're thinking about stuff, that you would give the Financial Peacemaker organization a look. Look it over. Give Shonette a phone call, and you know just see what the Lord would do in that. I love the fact that you are faith-based because it is so hard to find faith-based businesses. And I love that you're straightforward about that, as we are. So that feels like a fit, for
Yeah.
the audience that we have. So, is there anything else that you would want anybody to know about you or about the Financial Peacemaker services before we
Yeah.
go?
So I do want to say that I'm very open and unapologetic about my faith. As you can see or tell. But I do work with organizations and in depending on the environment that I'm in, I
Right,
may not be as vocal.
right.
But I do want the people to know that I am available, especially your audience, because we know as they come to you, they are faith-based. They
Yes,
will be faith-based. But I would want to say that the people, the services that we offer. So my company is the Shekinah Group LLC. That's the
okay,
company. I am the financial peacemaker.
right.
So as the coach, as a consultant, the financial wellness coach, it's really about who you are as a person above all. I talk about the
Mhm.
business finances, but none of that can fall in line unless we make sure that you're
That's right.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I think what I just heard you, if I can echo that, is if a business is wanting to bring you in, you'll respect the boundaries with which they set.
Right.
But again, speaking specifically to my audience, predominantly faith-based, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
You are the fit there. Love
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Mhm.
So what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you for your services, the Shekinah Group?
Right. So I can be reached at www.theshekinahgroup.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. I also have a Facebook page, but that is not as active as my LinkedIn. So the best way to reach me would be on my website or on LinkedIn at Shonette Sullivan.
Okay, wonderful. I so appreciate you taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule to give us some information and an overview on the services that you offer at the Shekinah Group. We are thrilled to have you, and so we thank you again for your time today.
Yes, absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great, and hopefully we'll talk to you again in the future if there's a specific topic that we feel like would, be something the audience needs to hear about. So, would you be willing to come back if we do that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Shanette.
You're welcome.